What's going on, creators? Just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Today I like to talk a little bit about state akin to sleep and do a little bit of a deep dive into this Neville Goddard style of teaching, the state akin to sleep. For those that are unfamiliar with that, a quick overview is basically before bed, using that time to become still, get present, become mindful of what your thinking is, and start to imagine the day unfolding in a more desirable way. And so you're basically taking inventory of what has gone through the day, stewarding what you have that's already manifested, and start to actually develop and move more into a pruning type of mindset and letting go of the chaos and the dysfunction, the fears, the torments, the sufferings that could have happened, and start to relive that in your imagination as though you've been able to overcome that through basically just using this metaphysical principle. And when it comes to the law of assumption in general, it's about embodying the end state. And so part of the state akin to sleep, I believe, is just allowing yourself to become more still and present. But you can start to get in that state akin to sleep throughout the present moment, throughout your day, as you start to experience more harmony and flow. And so evolving the state akin to sleep to not just a pre-bedtime activity, but incorporating that mindset into the present moment, I think is helpful, and it's something I put into the practice regularly. Whenever I'm experiencing something in my life that is maybe undesirable, instead of dwelling on it like I used to and start spinning out in my mind worst case scenarios, fears, and well, what if this happens? Oh, what if this happens? All that kind of shit that's not very helpful, and it keeps you projecting this imaginary future, which then unconsciously draws that to you. And by unconsciously, I just mean that you don't really mean to be drawing the fears to yourself in these worst case scenarios that then you have to experience, because part of the law of assumption is the realization that our inner world is being reflected into the screen of space, in that relationship with God, which is within us, according to not only the Neville Goddard teachings, but just the teachings of Jesus in general, with the kingdom of God being within. It's kind of understanding that statement from another perspective, and then maybe from listening to this, it adds another perspective. But ultimately, just with all of these types of teachings, everything out here is only a mirror reflecting back to you your own state of consciousness. And so in realizing that, it's important to start to use the present moment, not to spend it in your mind in future, which I feel like sometimes is a huge stumbling block. And not only the law of assumption mindset, practice, whatever, sometimes even the law of assumption, where it's constantly rejecting the present moment and what is, and not allowing your mind to become still and mindful of your unconscious patterns of thinking, which I think is part of the Neville Goddard state akin to sleep. It is more of a state of mind where you're observing your thoughts, but then also actively and consciously directing them, and directing consciously your imagination, which, if you're not consciously putting your mind to work in that way, then you're just reliving the past over and over again. And a lot of that is just the past fears and traumas, not experiencing anything new. And then you're doing that. You're dwelling on, well, what if this happens? Well, what if I get this disease? What if, I start to age and become not know who my family is, and what if this happens, and what if I just catch an illness and end up dying? It's all these fears of death that just start to come into your consciousness the older you get. From what I've experienced, it's you got to face these things as they emerge, or you're just in the hamster wheel of this fucking thing. It just keeps coming back to meet you, and so you consciously start to direct your mind, your imagination, and realize that God hears you. That you can start to look at you and your relationship with your Creator much the same way as the conscious and the subconscious. It's within you. It's when you become mindful of the thoughts that are happening in the present moment, and seeing the ones that are just unconsciously just happening to you as a direct reflection of your state, but being able to then actively in the moment use the state akin to sleep, which might be triggering because it's like you're wide awake and you're only in the present moment. But maybe for those that have played an instrument, have been engaged in sports, games, all these types of things where you can get really into the flow of what's going on in creation, and you're just like one with it. You're just like in the flow. You're just in the zone. If you're in sports, so you're playing guitar, you're just in the like fucking pocket. You're just and it's like there's not the chattering mind all the time. That maybe people that have never experienced high degrees of flow aren't even aware that level of like manifestation manifestation is possible. And by that I only mean having an inner vision and being able to demonstrate that into outer reality for others to be like, oh, look what's going on there. Didn't know that was possible. Somebody's took to another level, and anybody that's taken it to a high level is taking it in their consciousness first before they can demonstrate it into outer reality with their faith. They just believe through repetition, and that's something that you can start to apply with like the state akin to sleep when you start to consciously direct your thoughts and your imagination in the present moment, realizing that you're planting seeds into the subconscious mind that will cycle back to confront you. Just the same way that the negative, fearful, limiting thoughts and assumptions just effortlessly and easily come to you. If you've ever been broke or poor, you realize how easily and effortlessly poverty just came to you. It's like you didn't have to do anything, and now it's a struggle, and things are difficult and frustrating, and dramas and bullshits and just one thing after another. It's the same thing with changing from that cursed mind to the blessed mind that you actually have. That's your inheritance. You are blessed. It's just like realizing that you are is the problem. It's like, no fucking way, Mike. Look at what this is going on over here. Look at all this death and decay and sickness and poverty and violence and blah, all this shit that we can point out. Yeah, everything exists in creation. It's like, you want to focus your attention on that shit, you're just going to grow it with your attention and your energy and your awareness. What you focus on, then it, for you, becomes more of a fucking thing. But when you start to use a lot of these metaphysical principles to go, wait, if both states exist, cursed and blessed, and it's where I'm choosing to focus my attention, that will be reflected back to me like a big mirror. So it's like, oh, well, if I'm in the state of cursed, all I'm seeing in the mirror is like hell, basically. And it's like you can start to consciously start to choose to see heaven and love and peace and joy. Problem is, most people don't realize that that's even an option. But like using like the state akin to sleep, you don't have to just wait to recap your day. You could be in the flow of things. I wouldn't say just being in your mind and imagination when someone's in front of you having an interaction, or there's something going on that's being like, this is a situation I got to deal with. I'm not talking about being in your mind into this future. Or I wish this conversation would play out and try to control and manipulate it. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is a lot of times that we can be confronted with a situation that some could perceive as a problem, while others don't perceive that as a problem. The only difference is if there's a bunch of fear and reactivity in your consciousness, well, that's the stuff to let go of in the present moment, and using this flow, this state akin to sleep, which I believe is, again, talking more so about just the state of a quiet mind where you're able to be present, accept creation as it is right now without a bunch of just low-grade stress and anxiety in the mind. It's just like, oh, there's something to worry about. I feel like part of being present is being attentive and being like having someone's attention, giving your attention to somebody, receiving somebody's attention in the present moment is, I think, a big thing, to really start to focus more on, because that's like a flow, like there's part of a flow, is a part of a harmony. It's when you start getting in your mind of like, oh, did I say something and that person is offended? Are they triggered by what I just said? Is like, are they taking what I'm saying wrong? Like, are they understanding where I'm coming from, or like, did I just put them in a state of fear and now they're triggered? It's like all this shit that could just be going on. It's like you don't, really know how the other person's hearing you or perceiving you or whatever, because in a lot of ways they're projecting a lot of shit onto you and then telling themselves a story about you back to themselves simultaneously as you're speaking. It's like you could just like look like somebody that like, oh, you look like my ex's friend and he was a prick, and like now I'm getting that energy from you, even though like they're projecting it onto you, but it's still in the mix. It's still part of what's going on, but like but you don't gotta worry about other people. Part of this is like there's no one to change but self. It's another Neville Goddard teaching, but getting back to state akin to sleep and kind of just using that concept where you have a still mind and you're consciously able to impress your subconscious mind with desirable, harmonious, loving, joyful beliefs, assumptions, and all those are directly related to your beliefs and relationship with God, because ultimately God is the source of love and joy and peace. So to actually feel those kinds of those states and experience those kinds of reflections back in the mirror, you need to acknowledge the source of that is God, and God's going to manifest that inner idea of love and joy and peace into the outer reality creation for you to experience through a bridge of incidents, to get to that feeling, to get to that energy of love, which is all that actually exists. It's like that's one of the things that by facing fear enough times in your own journey of like growing your faith, you start to realize that, hey, when I'm just like present and still, being open to like listening to what does God say about like whatever I'm thinking about? Maybe I'm just sitting here just with this like low grade fear of like, oh, maybe my child's just going to get into an accident and like get into the hospital and maybe die, or oh, maybe my spouse is like going to get attacked while they're away. All these kind of danger thoughts, fear thoughts of like safety issues, and it's like, well, part of like overcoming those fears is through understanding your creator, through understanding creation. And you do that by, for one, asking, believing, and then receiving. It's like you aren't alone. So the more that you believe that, the easier it is to start to get these things figured out. But ultimately, you already know the answer. It's within you. That's the difference, where the world would have you depend on outer experts. Look at the data out here. Look at this ever-changing, evolving data out here in the Maya. Listen to somebody on a pedestal over here. They got it figured out, which I believe is the sin of Adam, is to give away your authority to the outer reality. But in acknowledging that there is only one creator, and that creator is, according to Jesus, in the kingdom of God, which is within you, and also without you, it's all things. It's all. We're all made up of it. It's like consciousness, spirit, whatever. It's all one, manifesting in all these different forms. And it's like, you don't need to believe that. It's like you can believe whatever you want to believe. I'm just saying from my perspective, that's how I am viewing things at the moment. Much more in that kind of I don't know, like oneness, it's all part of the quantum field, maybe is one way to say it, scientifically or whatever. We're all kind of made up of the same energy. There's only one energy. And you can, and that then kind of going into a tangent, but the state akin to sleep, back to that, I feel like you can evolve that. Not to say that the way Neville describes to do it, where you kind of just recap the day. My problem with it is like I got so much shit going on like throughout the day that it's like I'll get stuck at coffee. It's like, so it's like, okay, so get out of bed, feeling great, looking and feeling like healthy and strong and fit, and feeling good about how every day is getting more and more better and better, healthier and healthier. That kind of mindset, getting up out of bed, body just, getting more and more whatever. And it's like you start playing out your day, not through a movie screen, like imagining seeing yourself like on a theater screen, where sometimes we can like use our imagination like that. But, think of it like look down at your body, and connect with it like that. And in that, yeah, I would get hung up with like, I started just getting so involved in my morning routine for some reason that I wasn't progressing, and so that's why, looking at state akin to sleep, almost like being in flow states in the present moment, and impressing the subconscious mind with desirable thoughts that are conscious thoughts that you actually desire to be thinking, as opposed to unconscious thoughts that are most likely fear-based, believing that you're separate from everything that's going on in creation, which there's no accidents or coincidences going on in creation. Everything is so perfectly happening, it's mind-blowing. But like the more that you become aware of that and see that, though, the more that you believe that. But we all kind of start with this chaos mindset. I had a chaos mindset where I thought things were just randomly, there's all these victims and random shit was just going on, and everything. I didn't realize that consciousness played a role in anything, until like looking back at my own life and seeing how this has always just been going on. And this always been going on for you too. It's just whether we're aware of it or not aware of it. Are we just letting our unconscious fears and trauma cycles just being undealt with in the present moment, blaming everybody else for our problems? Even though, our fears and our energy associated with fear draws it to us and creates more of it the more that we focus our attention on it. And so, bringing it back to the present moment, whenever you drift and it's like, oh, I just drifted into fear and hysteria, and it's like, oh, I just seen my grandparents and they're getting, I don't know how much longer they have, and then you start thinking about worst case scenarios and this and that, and it's like, do I want to be thinking that way, or do I want to be thinking, oh, they're having a great time, everything is like they're in an awesome environment for them, and things are unfolding like a more and more joyful days, more and more peace, more and more serenity, as people age, and a lot of those kinds of things, it's all just a way of looking at it. It's all a way of, you can think about things numerous different ways, and like look around, like read the comments, people will take, some people hate me with a passion that you wouldn't believe, and it's like, and meanwhile other people, are the exact opposite and just love everything I'm doing. And there's like everybody in between that, some people like me a little bit, other people just like barely can. It's all over the fucking map, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it's like, and that's okay. I'm not concerned about it, because they all represent consciousness. The whole fucking thing of consciousness is expressed through form. And it's like, okay, so there's always a different way to look at it. It's kind of the moral of the story. It's like, okay, I'm looking at it and I'm telling myself a story that's really sad and depressing, and I feel that it's a drain of energy. And it's like, okay, how about I use the state akin to sleep, kind of get mindful, get present, connect with God, infinite intelligence in the present moment. Just breathe, get to the here and now, and observe your thoughts about it. It's like, okay, well, that's one way of looking, and ask God for a different way of looking at it. Ask infinite intelligence. It's like you can ask people outside of yourself, but infinite intelligence is the combination of all of it, and knows all things and is all things, and it's everything. So it's like, start working on that dynamic, and as you start to do that, then you become impressed with, like, you get a different, like a new thought comes to mind. Maybe not the first one, maybe it takes two or three, is like, asking, hey, God, what's a different way to look at that? Well, they're aging, they're decaying. That's my old thoughts about it. What do I really think about it? Well, everybody dies. Okay, and you keep asking 4 or 5 times until you get to the bottom of your programming that will keep emerging in the present moment as you keep doing this. And then you'll get to a spot where you'll run out of programming, and infinite intelligence will give you a new way to look at it that makes sense. And it's like, oh, that's like loving and harmonious and peaceful, and I get it now. Then by the time you get to the end of it, and you start doing that, as you're doing that, you're actively impressing the subconscious, which then will start to reflect that into the screen of space through a bridge of incidents, and by a bridge of incidents, that's just like another Neville Goddard saying, which means like just random things will start being done to you. You'll be compelled to deal with these different things. In my situation, I've had, a vehicle just busted. Oh, another vehicle busted. Now you're walking. Now you're doing this. Now it's this. And but every job that you have is in walking distance, and it's all working out and everything. And you just stop, as these things happen, freaking out and fear when it does, and go, oh, okay, I don't actually have a problem. Like, I want to freak out and flip out, because of things aren't working the way I think they should work. And just trusting that infinite intelligence, God, the creator, is unfolding it perfectly to correspond. It'll happen so naturally and organically. You don't need to worry about the how. You just get to the end state in the present moment, which is you're blessed. You don't got to worry no more. Things are all happening everything's just like an awakening process. And as you start going through this process, people are helping you become more and more conscious of what's going on in creation, and your role in creation and everything else, and how we can start bringing more and more heaven to earth, into our life, into our interactions with people. It's sometimes easier to have loving conversations with complete strangers, because there's not the dramas and the mental stories that can be around people that you're really close with at times. And other times it's like the people closest to you, you're trying to bring states of heaven to. But whatever, it's like either that or suffer. It's like who wants to keep fucking suffering all the time? I didn't realize that human beings were actually I don't know, like Cleons. It's like, it's like, let's just eat this gruel and just fucking fight, and it's violence, and let's do this shit, but whatever, I'm not sit there and judge what people are doing, but at the same time, I mean, that's an obvious comparison to constantly wanting to suffer and whatever, and grind and all this shit and sacrifice and grind. Okay, but it's only ever now. So it's like, are you spending the present moment, choosing to, tell yourself fearful, worst case things that God doesn't align with, because infinite intelligence has a perspective, and you can align to it by your feelings. It's like when you're feeling awful, and it's like you're feel sad and all this, you're angry or depressed. It's because you're telling your shit that God doesn't agree with, that doesn't align to love. It's like love feels good when you are exposed to it, when you're around it, when you're connected with it. And it's like, that's how you have an inner guidance system that works. God's made a perfect creation, and you're part of it. God doesn't create imperfect things. It's like, that's part of our old programming. But with that being said, I think I'm going to bounce. So appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. Hopefully this is somewhat helpful, especially if you're having the same problem like I was having, where it's just like, state akin to sleep. I'm only going through my morning routine, then I'm getting stuck. But kind of what just doing it throughout the day, impressing your subconscious mind, I feel like is more helpful to get your imagination more conscious, because almost like the older I got, the more thinking about and dreaming about new things versus modifying existing things, it starts to get a little bit more bogged down into the known, which as you're working on after the situation happens, you go through the situation, maybe you get triggered with some fear, maybe you get triggered with thinking some old programming that is not being conscious, it's just reactivity or whatever. Well, it's like in those moments where then it's like, okay, let me go back, just kind of get to the bottom where I got really out in the weeds, where I got spun out. And a lot of times it corresponds to a thought or an emotion, especially that was maybe triggering when you were younger, or who knows, but that's the time you kind of work through it, let it go, impress the subconscious mind with a more desirable thing, like God's in control and all things are working for my good. I don't need to worry about this. I need to just cast these cares and concerns onto God, and I need only to be still. Course in Miracles describes the point of the metaphysical practices is just to be at peace. Make peace the goal. It's like sometimes happiness can be the goal. I know I've gotten into that mix a couple times, a lot of times, but it's like the more happiness is like so subjective though. It's like, yeah, it's like that makes me happy for like 5 seconds, but then it's gone. Where peace is more like an operating from state. It's like, oh, peace is, and kind of my description of what I believe peace is through experience is just being able to be in like harmony and flow in the present moment and not being carried away with unconscious thoughts. Maybe even having the thoughts, maybe something, whatever is going on, and it's like, oh, now I'm telling myself a really fucked up story about this. Being able to bring it back, though, to that observer where you can observe the thoughts, observe the energy and the emotion. And I believe that's when you're one with the subconscious or one with like the Christ mind. What we call the subconscious mind is really like a godlike attribute if you think about it. All of the things that we let that be in charge of, like, oh, your blood pressure, your heart beating, your brain functioning, your eyes blinking, your ears vibrating, and somehow that's working all simultaneously happening. Your hair's growing. You're able to maintain balance. You're able to vibrate your vocal cords somehow to an audible thing that other people can comprehend and understand and translate through their own. The whole thing is really, if you've ever built something, and you really stop to think, if I could like think about all the things you'd have to create to get to just a robot that could just sit here. That's the amount of concentration and attention and love, and it's remarkable. But all of that shit we give to the subconscious mind like it's a separate entity, when really there's only one mind. And so it's like you can start to use the known, like the subconscious, because like me personally, I feel comfortable with that label, and I don't have a bunch of. It was always kind of, it's like, oh, the subconscious, I never thought too much about it. So it's easier for me to kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of get it through a science-mindedness, and I can, interpret these things going on within me. I get it. Okay, so, but yeah, so it's like you can become one with that observer essence, that's that life-giving thing that's keeping your heart beating right now. We can agree to that, that mind, you can become one with as you're watching and observing the thoughts, because alternatively you're the one that's consciously impressing that, and that this is kind of what I believe the state akin to sleep actually tangibly is in the present moment, so that you can review, for the fifth day in a row I had conflict at work with this specific person, and it's like doubling down and getting worse and worse and worse, and it's like, okay, so let's get still, let's get present, let's get into the present moment, let's ask our creator to help inspire the right thing to do. But for me, and then it's like, okay, using the state akin to sleep, imagining, what I actually desire is for this to be a harmonious place to work. I want that person and me, if not to get along, but to at least be at peace. And then start working on that, and then drop it, let it go, so you're not just reliving it over and over again. And then trusting in infinite intelligence's ability to uplift that person. Maybe you're praying for somebody and it's like, again, conflict, drama at work, and if you haven't done anything, you're just been flow, and you're expressing and demonstrating love throughout the day, and this person is triggered by the light that you're casting, for example. That's another common thing. It's like the higher that you elevate your consciousness, the more it just fucking triggers some people, because it's like a mirror and it shines on, the more that, I heard that saying, it's like the more that you're shining, the more of a shadow you cast or whatever. And I've just experienced that. I'll just be like really vibing really high, and like, maybe I just get done recording a track, or just did something just like, and it was really just in flow. I was really just vibing high, not any types of worst case scenario thinking or anything. It's just in the moment. A lot of time, and then boom, there'd be some, maybe somebody just pissed, for whatever reason, like they just want to take you down a peg. That shit happens, and when it does, you can not get triggered by it, and then you lose your energy, and you start matching frequencies. But the more that you're able to hold your state without getting into like drifting into unconsciousness, if someone unconsciously is coming to you and just really acting like weird, it's like, and not weird in like a good way, like weird in like a like they're almost angry, or they're just like erratic or chaotic or whatever, fearful and hysterical, like not making logical sense. Yeah, projecting a lot of shit onto you. Then like at that moment, then you can start to elevate them in your own mind, because they will tell you what's bothering you. They will say it, and it's like they'll project it like you're doing it, but that's what they're doing. And you take the situation as it comes. Ask the spirit what to do. But a lot of times what's helpful is then to, if that was you and you accidentally drifted into some fucked up state, not meaning to, just by your unconscious thinking, limiting beliefs or whatever. Would you want to stay in that state, or would you want someone to pray for you? If you like lost all your money or whatever, your job, would you want somebody to give you a job and give you like whatever? It's like, so you start praying for other people, and trying to elevate them, and in that moment then you're in a state akin to sleep through prayer and extending love to the other person, because we're all connected. It'll simultaneously have resonance within you as you just hold to them already as being in that state. Law of assumption is already done. It's like it. You have the desire that shows you what you're lacking, but then you put it on. And then it's done. You embody it. It's like it's done. I'm blessed. I prayed. God heard me. It's done. God's gonna help that person. I don't got to do it. This metaphysical principle will do it. It's like, you did it. Ask, believe, receive. It's done. They're taken care of. And then as you hold to the vision, do unto others. The golden rule, as you do unto you. You see how that situation starts to organically and normally resolve itself, or the person will leave, or whatever. It'll get figured out. But with that being said, I think I'm a balance. I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I appreciate your spiritual support and your physical support. Thank you for that. Donation link in the subscription, or not subscription, description. And I appreciate your attention for this long. I did get a comment, and I shortened the intro, for the what they call the younger generation. I don't really, not millennial or whatever, but the younger ones, they get to the fucking point, you boomer. So it's like sped it up a little bit. So hopefully, hopefully that's helpful for being a good steward of attention. I appreciate your attention. So you be anywhere and you decided to be with me, and I appreciate it. So with that being said, to the next now. God bless.